Let's be clear, we must condemn firmly what was the horrible terror attacks that Hamas has produced. But then afterwards, we have witnessed a series of military interventions by Israel in Gaza with a level of death and destruction that has no parallel in my time as Secretary General. Fortunately, the institutions we have shown an enormous difficulty in making sure that accountability takes place. We have courts, but we see that the decisions of courts are not respected. And it is this kind of limbo of accountability that is totally unacceptable, and that requires also a serious reflection, namely in the context of the Summit of the Future and in the context of all attempts to do a serious reform of our institutions.
افتح الطريق افتح الطريق
Yesterday's incident involving a UN convoy stopped by Israeli forces is the latest example of the unacceptable dangers and impediment that humanitarian personnel in Gaza are experiencing. The convoy was carrying 12 staff members on their way to support the polio vaccination campaign in northern Gaza. Its movements were fully coordinated with Israeli forces and all details provided ahead of time. When the team was stopped at the Al-Rashid checkpoint, they were informed that Israeli forces wanted to hold 2 UN staff members in the convoy for questioning. The situation escalated very quickly, with soldiers pointing their weapons directly towards our personnel in the convoy. The UN vehicles were encircled by Israeli forces and shots were fired. The convoy was then approached by IDF tanks and a bulldozer, which proceeded to ram the UN vehicles from the front and from the back, compacting the convoy with the UN staff inside. One bulldozer dropped debris on the first vehicle while Israeli soldiers threatened staff, making it impossible for them to safely exit the vehicles. The convoy remained at gunpoint as senior UN officials engaged with Israeli authorities in an effort to de-escalate the situation. The 2 staff members were interrogated by Israeli forces and then released back to us. After 7.5 hours at the checkpoint, the convoy returned to base after being unable to complete its humanitarian mission, but all personnel came back. This incident and the conduct of Israeli forces on the ground put the lives of our staff in danger. It is critical that Israeli forces take measures to protect humanitarian staff and assets and to facilitate their work. This is what international humanitarian law requires. Despite this incident, our partners were able to start the...
How long were operations sort of at a standstill after that? I presume they're back up and running now, but how long were they stopped for?
They were stopped for a few days until we had, the assurances from the Israeli authorities that, number one, they would give us an investigation report on the incident, and that there would be a review of the coordination mechanism, and that review is ongoing.
And have you seen the investigation report yet?
We have not received it yet.
Thanks very much for your briefing.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for...
Nice,